So we're going to start all over again here, and we're going to go from our plug to the fuel pump all the way back. So the plug from the fuel pump goes in through a hole with that grommet plug in the hole down there underneath the vehicle, and it comes in through, and if we trace the wiring and we follow it, it is identified as that green wire with the white stripe. And as we follow that through the harness, we go all the way up to the front. Here's where we've identified that green wire with the white stripe right here, which goes to this plug, and this plug connects to that plug, and that plug goes to the firewall out the other side. Here on the other side of the firewall, we're going to trace that wiring again. We've determined that it does not go in through the cowl here, and it does not go over this way, so therefore it has to come in through here, and we follow it along, and as we keep following it along, it goes in front of the radiator. So I've pulled that wiring out, which would have been fastened in behind here, and then it'll go back in, and it's going to go up into our fuse box under the hood over here. We get back here to the fuse box, and this is our fuel pump relay here. We're going to flip this over, and when we flip this over, here's our green and white wire right there. We're going to start here, and I'm going to show you with the test light that we don't have power going to this wire, and with no power going to that wire, we're not going to have our fuel pump running. So we have the key in the ignition there, but we don't have it turned to on just before start. And so we're going to check in here, and we see that we've got power there. We've got no power there. Now this, when the keyed on ignition is turned on, then we will have power there. We don't have anything there, and naturally we don't have anything on the wire that we're troubleshooting here. So let's go turn the ignition on, and now we should have power on this orange wire. So now that we've turned the ignition on, we see that we've got our power there, so that's good. We don't have power on our green and white wire, and we should, because once the power is activated into here, then it should activate this relay, and then it should provide the power to here. So this is our constant power. It was always on, but we want power right here to send back to that fuel pump. Now when we looked previous, we know that this orange wire is common with our shut-off relay, which is right here. So this is the shut-off relay. We've got power to that, so that's that common feed. And if I go in again, if I shut off the key, then there shouldn't be power to this either. But before we do that, we should have constant power on this one, and we do. And that one there, we don't have anything on that one either. If we have our powers that are coming into both of those, they should be sending power to our center ones right here, and they are not. So that's telling me that the problem is beyond these two relays. And here we are back again. We shut that ignition off just to prove, and we don't have any power there. So our ignition is sending power to here. But what's the other part of this circuit? Well, it needs to be this one here, so if this is the power side, this is the ground side, and the ground side is coming out of the PCM. So let's go back here to page 8W-11-8, and this is specifically our automatic shutdown relay and our fuel pump relay. And as it comes in here, it's saying it's going through fuse 16, and then the C154 we determined is the power distribution center itself. So then we take a look there, right, and we see that dark green black wire. Now we've indicated that on the relay, so that's coming in, and that is our constant power. So this constant power right now, going back to C154, is just in a loop. It's not going anywhere, right? So then we look over here and we've got our orange wire that I was talking about. So our common orange coming in is going both to this relay and to this relay. And that is coming from the power distribution center, fuse 18. That is also coming from, you know, if we take a look, C154 or another leg of the power distribution center. So those are two power wires, and this is the ignition on, right? And I'll just demonstrate that again at the fuse box. Okay, here we are again with the test light, and we're looking for basically that fuse 8. Now forgive me if I don't have it exactly right, because it's not listed in the fuse box here, and it's also not listed on the cap, but fuse 8 is either going to be this one here or this one here. Now in both cases we have power to both of those fuses. Fuse 8 comes in, this should be 16 down here, right? So 16, that's our constant power, and that would be going to what we identified as the black and green wire to our relay over here. That's our constant power. Now if we check fuse 18 right here, we don't have anything, but let me go in, turn the ignition on, and we'll have power here to fuse 18, which will then power our orange wire, which will then power those orange wires that are going to both of these relays here. Okay, so now I've turned on the ignition, and we should have power at fuse 18. This is fuse 18 down in the bottom. And as we touch that, we see now we have our power. So this power, switched on power, is going to go to that orange wire, which is going to these. So that leg is good. So then what we need is we need the other side of that leg, and that would be the ground connection. These are again both of our fuel pump relay and our automatic shutdown relay. And as we look at this again, when we're talking, the orange wire comes from the power distribution center, and it powers up the relay. So then we know this side is good. So what we're looking at is this side and this side. So we trace this one down, and that's going to go to a dark blue wire, and it's coming off of the powertrain control module. That's our PCM, that's our computer. So this is basically the ground, the negative, the other side of that circuit, so that when this engages to that with the key on, it should trip this over, and then we'll get our power to our fuel pump. So we have a problem here. And we also have a problem on this one because it wasn't pulling this one over either in both cases. So if we follow this one down, now it says we have, this is like a pink and white wire. We got our power distribution module flipped upside down again. Here's our fuel relay. Here's our shutdown relay. Back in there, if you can see that, that's our pink wire that they were talking about. Pink and white, actually, if you look at it close. And this is our dark blue wire that they were talking about. Both go to the same location on the relay, and these are both coming out of the PCM. So these are our problem that I'm looking at next. We've got our constant power, we've got our switched on power. We need to find out why we aren't getting a connection here to trip the relays to get our power to these center wires here. We need to refer to our drawing one more time. So this is our PCM, and we're looking for our common connection C142. So both of those wires, this one and this one, are in plug C142. So we're going to go back to the book, and we're going to find out what the information is on these plugs. So if we take a look here and we scroll down our list, we're going to find that our C3 pin, when we look in here, so this is an indication of the pins, right? So this would be 1, 2, 3. So our C3 pin, pink and white, is the automatic shutdown relay controller. And now if we go down and we take a look at this one, C19, that's the dark blue, that's our fuel pump relay control. So that all pans out. And then these would be our pinouts on that plug as it's plugged in there. So this is the ground that needs to come back out to engage that relay. That ground connection should be going in to our PCM. And then we're also going to have a power feed from our distribution center that goes in to the PCM. Then it does its magic, and then it sends the leg back out to operate our 2 relays that we have here. 8W-80-15, and then this over here is the black plug that's into our power control module. So then we're looking down here and we're looking for pin out A31 and A32, and then they're going to tell us that those are the 2 ground connections right there. So then when we look on this one here, we're looking at right there, that's 32 and that's 31. So we found the in, right? This is the ground in to the PCM, but where's it coming from, right? So I found on this page here 8W-30-8, and if we look down, we see our power control module, and then you see over here in the corner, this is where our Z12 is. Both tan wires, both coming from the powertrain control module, and they're both going to G104. The G stands for ground, so that's your ground 104 connection. So we're going to this page here, which is 8W-90-14, and that's going to be our figure 8. And then when we come up here, we take a look, and we have over here G103 and G104. According to the book, this is our connector down here. Now, previously, we've already cleaned all of this up. So we've cleaned all those connections up, because we seen before that we kind of had a janky connection in there. And just to prove it, I'm going to take my test light here and I'm going to switch it over to the positive. And then when we touch our ground, you see that we have our connection there. So our ground connection is good here. So we go back to page 8W-30-15, and we're going back to our black plug, which is C140. And what we want to do is we want to go back to those connectors A31 and A32, which are both tan wires, black and tan. It says there, those are going to be our ground connections. Those ground connections will go to what we just pointed out at the front of the engine underneath the alternator. So we want to test from there to our pin out. Because that is such a small pin to get in there, I've just got this thing here, which is a really thin wire that I put in there, and then I probe my end to get my connection. So far it's worked out pretty good. We check our ground connection down in there underneath the alternator, which is good. So then this wiring goes to this plug, and then that ground would go into the PCM. This is just an extension of that, which is not going anywhere. It's just going dead ending to here. So now we test this, and we see that we have our ground connection. So the wiring is good from the ground connection to the plug-in here. Now you can remove this cover off of the end here so you can see the color of the wires to verify what you're doing is correct. And all it is these 4 little tabs here that you depress and then pry this off of there. Now once you've got that cover off of there, you can see the color of the wires, and you can see that we do have the same color wires, and they are black and tan as they're supposed to be. We verified here that the last 2 pins are in fact 31 and 32 right there. It's just hard to see this last one there because it's right on the end. So these are our 2 pins here that we're going to check. We look on the back, and they are black and tan, and those are the ground connections going over to underneath the alternator like they're supposed to. And we've checked the last one, so now we're going to check that one there. Again, this one is good. So we verified now that the wiring from the alternator ground connection to our plug-in to the PCM is good. So that part is good. Now if we look at page 8W-30-9, and we just move down to the bottom here, we've got our power control module. Again, we have our connector C140, right? So this is pin A22, and that should be pin A14. These are our color of wires that we're going to be looking for: yellow, red, and red, yellow. So these are the 2 power feeds coming into the power control module. So we're looking for that pin A14, which is the yellow red, and it says that it's a fused B positive, so that's battery positive. And then we come down and we're gonna look for A22, which is the red yellow, and again that's fuse B, battery positive. Those go through a fuse, so maybe the first thing we want to do is find that fuse, check it, and then proceed to identifying those wires. And we rewind from our A22 and A14, both going up. We're going to follow those, and we're looking for fuse 20 and fuse 15. We go to 8W-11-3. This gives us our power control module schematic here and identifier. And we look in here and we have, this is our fuse 20, F20, 20 amp. And then over here, this should be our fuse 15 right there. So this should be our fuse 15 up here, which is the big one. And we have power on that one, and then this should be our fuse 20 down here, and we have power on that one, and this is with the ignition off. Remember, all of these feeds all the way through, this is ignition off, and this we have power to everything, and all of these fuses except for that one. This one is ignition on, so right now we don't have anything till we turn the ignition on. All these other fuses will have power on them right now, so just a little FYI there, but our fuses are good. So we're going to do the same thing as we did with the ground wires. We're going to find our two connections here, and we have the A14, which was a fuse battery positive. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I went and looked at it, and that does not exist in our case. We do not have this one. It's not there. I'll show it to you. And then we have our A22, and that's the battery positive. We're going to check that right now. Same as before, we're checking our positive legs. So we've got the test light on negative, and this is a dead connection. This is just, you know, all this is basically you're checking the length of wire at the end, whether we've got our power or not. So that's our pin 22. So we're going to check that pin 22, and we see that we have power to our pin 22. So that's good. We've checked our ground, we've checked our power in. They're both on the same plug. So all of that seems to pan out. Okay, so when we look on this one, we're looking at pin 14. Now that's the third one in from the end on the center row. Hopefully you can see that, but the three wires on the back end, there's nothing in there. They're dead. If you look real close, I can't get in close enough with the phone, but if you were to look close, they're actually molded over. There's nothing there. All the pins that aren't being used, they have it molded over, so it's sealed, and there's nothing that goes in there. You can kind of see the metal connectors inside the pins where there is some, and then you see those three there. There's nothing in there. There is no A14. There is no power feed from A14 that's going into this plug. So we only have one power feed in. So going to go back here to 8W-80-17, and that's going to be our C142. C142 is the gray plug that goes into the PCM, and we are looking at our number 3, which is the pink and white. That is the automatic shutdown relay control. And then after that, we want to check our C19, which is our fuel pump relay control module. So this is coming out of the PCM and it's going to the relay. Back here, what I've done is I've located pin 3. Again, I got my little connector here hooked up, and I got an alligator clip holding that lead on there so that I can hold the phone and show you the reading at the same time. And what we're doing this time is we just got our meter here, we got it to ohms, and we're checking for resistance. So right now, because it's open, it's nothing, right? That pink and white wire back here, this is for that automatic shutdown. Hard to see, but we get back to our meter and we see we've got 0.3, 0.4. We got hardly any resistance, which means that the wire is good from one end to the other. Now if I take that off, that's where we're going to see basically infinity, or there's no connection there. Here we are again. We found our C19. This is fuel pump relay. That's that dark blue wire. We've got all our stuff connected here. Alligator clip to the lead, to this, to the pin. And then we're bringing that back over. Again, we're checking for ohms. We're checking for resistance. So that's what we got set on the dial here. And then we're going to probe our blue wire down in here. And then as we look on our meter, again, we have the same reading, 0.4, 0.3, and then I take it off, and then we're back to infinity again. We've proved our wiring from the power distribution center to the PCM, from the ground to the PCM, and out from that connector back to our relay. So all the wires prove good, all the connections prove good. It's suggesting that we've got another bad PCM, that it's not communicating or something inside that PCM to trigger the power or the ground, I guess it would be, to basically engage our relay. Because we need the relay to be engaged when you have it on switched on power, because that's going to start your pump, and then so you can prime your fuel rail before you can start the vehicle. So we should have something happening there. Okay, we got one more to check out here, and that is for our, if we take a look here, we've got our C12, and that is the dark green orange automatic shutdown relay output. So we'd already checked our C3. This was our automatic shutdown relay control, and this one here is the output. Back to the relay here, those are those two wires there. That's that green and orange. With this relay being engaged, then it would then send power, right? And it should be sending power back, which then goes back to get our power for the fuel pump relay. Now on here, same plug, so we've found our pin for that one right there. We've got everything hooked up again, and we're going to check our ohms to make sure that we've got no resistance. So there I have it. I'm touching the lead there for those ones. We can see again we have the same reading, 0.4, 0.3. So they're all tagging out as the same. So our wiring is good on all three of those. Here's the labeling here. So 85 is our coil ground and 86 is our coil to the battery. So 86 would be our ignition orange wire that's feeding into the relay. So you turn the ignition on, now you have power to 86 coil battery. Then the PCM will provide the ground at 85 and finish that circuit, which will then click it on, and then you see 87, which is normally open, and you see 87A, which is normally closed. So it's going to switch from 87A to 87, which is this the center one right in here, and that is the one that we're not getting any power feed to. When that circuit is completed, then it will switch it over to 87, and then it's going to transfer our constant power from 30 to 87, and that's going to feed our power back to that fuel pump. And that's where you see also 30 is a common feed. So now we get back to our little test here, and what we've got is we're completing that circuit there. So when we're doing that, we've got our power in from this one here that's connected to my battery positive because it's a 12-volt source, and then we've got this one is the ground, connected to the ground. And when we're doing that, you'd hear a click, and then that is engaging this prong here. And if we remember, that's 87. Again, we're going to set our meter to ohms, and then what we do is, of course I can't do that with holding the phone and everything connected here and stuff like that, but you know, demonstration purposes, we will have our two connections, and then we're going to touch these two, and then when we get back, we want to see that we have like that 0.4 reading like we had before, which shows that that connection is good. That's going to prove that our relay is working properly. And we've proved all our wirings. This suggests that it could be the relay, because if this isn't engaging that center one and sending our power down, it could be the relay. If you want to verify that, you check your relay, plug it in and check it again and make sure, see whether we've got our power going. So I can do that. I've verified that this is a good one, and I'll verify that I've got another good one, and I'll pop those out and I'll recheck again. So we put those relays in that we verified were good. We tested them, they're good, we know that. The ignition is off, but we have our constant power as we did before. So that's the automatic shut-off relay. And then this here is going to be, that there is going to be our fuel pump relay. So that's the constant, the common coming into those relays. And now when I turn the ignition on, we should have power to our orange. So we have power on our orange wire, that's for the fuel pump relay. And we have power on our orange wire for the automatic shutdown relay. But we still do not have power to our green and white. And we don't have power on our green and orange. We're thinking things through here. We've proved all the wiring and we can't get this thing to start. This is the only key that I have. I cannot unlock the doors with the factory fob, lock them, unlock them, whatever. So we're going to continue to use this key that gives us no control over the factory alarm system. And once we've disconnected the Viper system, it should no longer be in effect. If the factory alarm system is showing a fault, then that could be preventing us from being able to start this vehicle. Here's what I'm proposing here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jumper the ignition key on to this. Then I want to see if that's going to activate our fuel relay over here and see if we can get some power to this green and white wire. If not, then I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to jump a leg from the ignition keyed on to there to get to force the issue and get our power to our fuel pump. So what I've done here is I've just simply made a little jumper wire like that with the two ends to plug in, and here it is, and that is going to be from our ignition, our orange, to our open circuit there. That's the circuit that we're trying to complete, and we want it to come on with the key on. We don't want it constant power, common power. So this is what we're going to do first. We're going to put that on there and we're going to see if it helps with our fuel relay. You see that our orange wire is working, right? We've jumped that over to our green and orange, so we should have power there. And we do, so that's good. So we've completed that circuit that we were struggling with all that time. So now we want to see if that's gone to the PCM and at least given us our power back to the blue to get our power over here. So we do have our orange, that's working, always did. Now we go over to our green and white, still nothing. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that little jumper wire and I'm going to do the same thing right there, and I'm going to force the issue. We're going to get keyed on power to our fuel pump like we want. Then we'll see if our fuel pump, we got power back to our fuel pump, and then if our fuel pump works. We have our orange, the power on, and we've jumpered that over to our white and green, and now finally we have power to that wire. If we take a look in the front, we've got our power here. Now we'll just chase it down, make sure that we have it all the way to the end. So we got that gray plug there. This is going to be the firewall side. We're going to probe this one here, and as you can see, we got our power. So we're going to plug together this one and that one, and then we'll go check the back. And here we're probing our wire and we have our power. So we have our power all the way back. So we have it plugged in the back here, and I can hear it running. I'll just be quiet to see if you can hear it. Hopefully you can hear that. So now we know that our fuel pump is still good and it doesn't need to be changed. Back here again, checking it out. We've shut off the ignition and the pump is not running, that's exactly what we want. We don't want that thing running all the time, only with the key on and as the vehicle's running. The final check with the key off, we don't want any power to where our relays were. That was only keyed on power that we want. Nothing. And again, on our fuel relay, of course, we're in the back, we verified it. Verify it here, there's nothing, and nothing again on there. So everything is good, it's the way we want it. And if we're gonna dive in any deeper on the electrical, which I think we all need a break from, I think it's gonna be in the alarm system now. I think that something in the alarm system is preventing the vehicle from starting. What that is, I don't know, and it's gonna be probably just along a process to figure that out as it was to get to this point here. So as it stands, just got my little jumper wires in there. I'll make do with that. I will take care of these other things as time progresses.